people. You know, they have access, and it's just normalised for a certain extent anyway. So it's wonderful to be here. We'd like to thank Richard from Olio for the sponsorship, and we have some other sponsors as well. We're very thankful for everybody. Is the mic working? Am I got the right distance?
Loud and clear.
Yeah, grand. Thanks. You all got your booklet. That's the schedule for today. One of the things you'll notice is at the end, or towards the end, we're going to discuss a national policy agenda, which is on the very back page. If you can make yourself familiar with that. And at some point we'll be voting on that, not necessarily to change everything, but to see what a show of hands looks like for everyone in the room. The goal of this conference is to unite people and to unite the disparate groups together, so we're all working together and moving forward. There's no point in us busting our ass and feeling like we're banging our heads against the wall. There's like, as a group of people, that we can not do that, and we can work together to bring change, you know. There's a barcode on the back if you want to help donate. That'd be fantastic. No worries though if not. So what is a cannabis patient? To me, it's anyone that needs access to cannabis really at the end of the day is a cannabis patient. You don't necessarily have to be sick to utilise it. I use cannabis every day, all day, every day. If I don't, my friends are going, can you smoke, please? Because I'm hyper and I'm hopping off the walls, all the bang, nine, let's do this, let's do that. And just, life is ups and downs. And cannabis helps me moderate and stay in the middle as best I can. So that, but I'm not a chronic pain sufferer like Carly or Alicia or Amy or any of the people in the room. So like a cannabis patient is a person that needs access to cannabis, and that's one of the reasons that we're here, is because we don't have access to cannabis here. It's like, and the more I get to know about it, and you got to forgive me if I'm making mistakes in the terminology when it comes to the access program in Ireland. You know, I'm not an expert on that. All I know is that it seems an awful lot of people need it, and they're being denied it. And we're here today to try and unify people, bring everyone together, so everyone's got a collective voice, so we can try and stay together as we move forward together. So a cannabis patient is an activist. And if we really want change in this country, like, straight up, you have to be prepared to get arrested.
Hey.
Straight up. Straight up. If you don't, we'll be doing another conference next year, and we'll be chatting again. Like, we can talk and chat, but there needs to be action. Like the media, like fair play to the Mirror for coming here, and for the Examiner and the Cannabis News. What about RTE? Where are they? Where are the cameras? These people are complicit in the suffering of Irish people. Complicit.
Yeah.
Complicit. I feel as if we should be, that's one of the, like, what does our year look like moving forward? Well, if we can all unify and come up with a collective plan, maybe we can meet by Zoom once a month or something like that, and come up with a collective plan of how we're going to move forward. We should be protesting outside RTE. It's fucking genocide. Excuse my language. It's genocide. It's like they're marginalising a group of people, identifying a group of people, and telling them that it's not okay to be who you are. What about, if it was Rwanda, they'd cover it. If it was anywhere else, they're covering it. Why aren't they covering it here? It's the stigma in this country is ridiculous. Ridiculous, man. There's still stigma. Our friend Ed Begley, he posted on Twitter yesterday for us, and I had to persuade him to do it. He goes, Martin, I've been sober since 1978. My AA friends will give me a hard time, and I'm like, sober people get sick too, man. Sober people get cancer too, you know? And then he ended up, he posted it. And there's a nice bit of interaction. We need like more stuff like that. So the point of the conference again is to unify all of us cannabis patients, so we can be a collective group of people as best as we possibly can and move forward to change the laws in Ireland. And that's why we're here today. Thanks very much.
Thanks for that.
I'd like to introduce now Stephen. Stephen Garland is going to moderate the next panel, Medical Cannabis in Ireland. Dr. McGovern, Gino Kenny, Richard Cray, and Natalie Regan.
All right, guys. Exciting day, no?
Yeah, go on, Steve.
Here today, you know. Martin brought us down a bit there, but we're getting energized again. To your amazing panel to kick the thing off, and it's entitled. What's it entitled, Stephen? It's entitled Medical Cannabis in Ireland. So a broad stroke of what this is all about, yeah? So we have an amazing panel. I'm going to run through really quickly. We have Chief Wall Banger in the corner over here, Gino Kenny, banging his head over here for how many years? 6 to 10 years. Then next we have Richard Craig from Olio, and he's going to tell us about the madness of having this country full of product that you can't get out. Next we have Ireland's only doctor. You know? There's one for everything for the last, I don't know, we're getting bored looking at him. He's amazingly, he's like Tom Cruise, man. He stays looking the same. He was in, you know, Top Gun 1. Anyway, and then next to him, the lovely Natalie O'Regan. And always very important, there was told, and it's a Cork thing. So, look, you guys, we're not going to hang around here. We're just going to kind of get you energized and getting excited about what is going to be an amazing conversation. And I'm going to leave it up. Basically, we're just following the broad strokes for this first chat. And I'm going to hand it over to Gino Kenny, who's going to, you know, Gino, you're the man, the chief wall banger. So bring us up to date with what's going on with your banging your head off the walls.
Well, I'll keep banging my head until things are right. I think a lot of us have been at this for a considerable amount of time, and you know, you say to yourself, has there been progress in the last number of years? And I would argue there has been progress. It's been very, very slow, very arduous, and extremely frustrating. And where we want to really go is, you know, we want to go much further than the authorities are saying that they're kind of stating. So. Obviously the medical cannabis access program is up and running. There's about 12 people that have access via prescription. That's a very, very small amount in relation to, you know, in relation to the program itself. And then there's about 65 people that have a via license. So that's less than 100 people in the state. But the key thing, a number of key things in relation to the access program is that there's a review happening this year. Because obviously it was first initiated in 2017, which is hard to believe actually, but obviously it wasn't functional. So the main thing of that program for people to get access is that it has to broaden out some of the conditions. Yeah, so it has to broaden it out in relation to conditions, because there's only 3 conditions that it stipulates under the program. Because if it doesn't, I think it would largely kind of stay morbid, and people won't get access, and you know. It'll just kind of just drop off, and there won't, you know, people won't get access. So that's one of the key next steps of the program, is that it broadens out in relation to the program. So look, we'll keep kind of pushing that agenda. There's a review that's taking place very, very soon. That kind of cohort of people, hopefully, you have to kind of be kind of optimistic that they will include other conditions and the criteria for those that can get access, because obviously it's just consultant led, and that is, you know, extremely restrictive in relation to who can get access and who can prescribe, because there's an institutionalized resistance around medical cannabis from the very, 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 very top, right? We have changed the narrative, particularly in the last 6 years, in relation to public opinion. Public opinion is way ahead of, you know, other opinions of society. So, and even political opinion. I mean, if you mentioned medical cannabis 6-7 years ago in the Dáil, you would have been probably laughed off the park, you know. So the narrative has changed, but what hasn't really changed is those that really need access to it. Because at the moment, largely what happens is people still have to go to the black market and so forth and so forth. So, but look, we'll keep pushing. We'll keep pushing that kind of agenda to broaden the program out, and so people can get access. Because otherwise, if you don't have access, what's the point of the program? But look, I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that things will progress, even though they're extremely slow. But you can't give up, and the main thing is like you don't give up, and you keep pushing, knocking at the door. and then eventually will open. It will open.
Keep on keeping on, Gino, you know. So picking up on that, Richard, because you're in the back in the trenches as well, trying to get, you've got the product in the country at times, and you still can't get a. Tell us a little bit about that journey.
Yeah, so I suppose we set up the company in 2019 to bring in and supply the program. It took us 2 years to get the program approved. So we've a highly stabilised product, and we went through the ringers both with the authorities, and the product was eventually added to the program in November of last year. But then we spent the next 6 months trying to get admin codes, which are the codes that are the reimbursement codes that are applied to the program. So much so that the product that we had in the country, which was over 3,000 units for patients, was going out of date. So we're now
That's criminal.
yeah. So we're now we have a new shipment. Sorry, we have a new delivery after being approved, and it's on its way to Ireland. And we're hoping that the codes come through from the authorities next week. You know, because we have the product. My wife is with me in the company. She's a software engineer. She created an application that monitors the treatment for patients, which is one of the big issues that the consultants have had. So we're doing everything we can do to make this accessible. So yeah, as I said, we have product that's leaving the country because it's going out of date, and we've stuff coming in on Monday. So it's
It's unbelievable, you know, and the frustrations are coming from the politician right through the people that are right at the cold face of trying to sort this out. The only doctor in Ireland, Gareth, you're at the cold face as well of addiction, and what's happening with the...
Well, very little is happening, unfortunately. I think, I could echo everything that Gino says. There's two things just to say. I mean, consultant-led is just another barrier in the way it is. My own preference would be to have doctors not involved in it. When you get doctors involved in something like this, nothing happens. So I prefer it more. I know it's not perfect, the US model, but I prefer more of it to be that you are able to be able to access cannabis without actually having to put it on prescription. That's my own view. But if it is going to be done by doctors, I think it needs to be spread out towards GPs, and GPs are the most plentiful of the doctors. The real area, I think, where really this needs to go in terms of, I think it should be made available for any condition whatsoever. Whatever the condition is, make it available. But the real area is, and it's not even a condition, chronic pain is a symptom, it's not a condition, and it is so debilitating. I mean, I've read statistics that there's possibly as many as 1 in 3 people in this country suffer with chronic pain issues. I mean, that's just unbelievable, and the vast majority of them, it's not managed very well. And in the ones that are on chronic pain medication, the chronic pain medication comes with side effects, horrible side effects. And I really just cannot understand how in the 21st century we let people be in chronic pain. I just struggle with that. My own profession, which is meant to be the caring profession, doesn't care. Because if they cared, we would make this available to people who have chronic pain. Why are we getting in the way of it? The other issue really, and I've always maintained this about medical cannabis, and I know a lot of my own profession talk about the research. And they always talk about, you know, the trials out there. We all know, everybody in this room knows why the research that they want isn't there, because they don't invest in that research. And plus, we've had to research an illegal drug. And if you know anything about kind of the illegal market versus legal market, the best research in my area of addiction is in alcohol and tobacco. Why? Because it's legal. We know exactly what it is. It reduces the possibility of confounding or other reasons why a product is harmful, because you know what you're studying. A lot of the time we don't, so a lot of it is inferential with cannabis, so the quality of the research is going to be probably less. It's improving. But one area, and the medical profession seems to keep away from this, is I've always maintained that the worst that can happen with medicinal cannabis is it doesn't work.
Yeah.
That's really it. It just doesn't work. But it doesn't cause any harm. There is nowhere internationally where medical cannabis causes harm. I haven't seen it. I haven't seen one paper. In fact, I haven't seen one case But around the paper, it does not cause any harm. So if it does not cause any harm, why are we getting in the way of it? Why not let people try it? It just doesn't make any sense to me. So I think what I just want to finish on this note. I think we are probably going to have to. I'm going to probably have to take responsibility for this. Is we are going to have to try and encourage more of the medical profession to come out of this. I mean, I was talking to Tom Curran, who's here today, you know, about the assisted dying, which, you know, a lot of the kind of barriers that they're encountering there is very, very similar. And he was telling me that, you know, that 20 doctors had got involved in that campaign, and that'll only improve. You made a very good point. I mean, you must be sick of seeing my ugly face. You must be, because we're just not seeing anybody else, although you did tell me that there's somebody else in here today. There's another doctor, believe it or not, in the audience today. Delighted to hear that, because it does feel lonely sometimes. Although I have to say, whenever I do radio stuff with other doctors, I won't mention any names, they do make it easy for me. I mean, they make it very easy for me. Without even opening my mouth, I kind of win. I don't have to say anything, you know?
Gareth, we're lucky to have him now. So keep on turning up is the thing, you know. And so we'll use the kind of segue over to our legal kind of expert. Natalie, you have your eye on European law changes and stuff like that, or just petitions and things happening. Can you broaden a little bit what's going on there?
Yeah, so there's not, well, I won't say there's not much I don't know about the laws around cannabis at this stage, but I've been down way too many rabbit holes. We all see that Europe is moving forward, like that there's a lot of states that are legalising cannabis, there's a lot of states that are broadening their access to medicinal cannabis. And when you look at what Ireland has, it's like we may as well be walking around like Fred Flintstones rolling the car with our feet. I mean we're back in the dark ages. Like Gino said, there was a review coming up this year with the MCAP, and even Richard was highlighting it. Yes, there's a review. Yes, people have access to medicinal cannabis in very limited circumstances, but there's no monitoring of these patients. So what is informing the review? Like, how are they going to find out what works, what doesn't work, what's a benefit, who benefits, what types of conditions benefit, when they're not bothering to monitor patients, when they're not bothering to do the research? And like, there's one thing that we always hear when you talk about cannabis is, oh, we need more research, we need more research. Here you go, it's on a plate, do your job. You know, like you can't complain about something and then just not do something when it's handed to you on a plate.
And it is absolutely irritating that we don't seem to borrow it from places in the world where it exists. You know, you've got somebody like Governor Cuomo in New York. Does he not have the resources to kind of go, here, I'm making New York legal? Did I not look into it? Are people going to die in the streets from legalizing this thing? I think he's got a few resources behind to look into these things. So Europe, like, what have we got? What chance of it? Germany's going legal?
Germany, Malta has their bill coming out as well, which is, Malta's bill is very good in my opinion. Like, we can learn a lot from it here because they're in the European Union. They're signed up to the same international agreements, the same laws that we are, the same international and European laws. So if they're able to do it,
they're an island.
They're an island as well. Okay, we have the issue of Northern Ireland, but that's a different story. That's another argument.
It's already legislated. Northern Ireland, it's fine.
Nick is here, where is he? He can talk about Northern Ireland in a minute. But yeah, like, it can be done.
Yeah.
There is absolutely no appetite whatsoever. I'm sure plenty of people here have sent emails to TDs or tried to approach somebody to advance their cause, and what have we gotten? Some copy and paste response or no answer.
Yeah.
I mean, as Gareth said, people are supposed to care. They're supposed to care about it. They're supposed to help the citizens of Ireland, and they're just blatantly ignoring it.
It's a frustration for everybody, I think, in the room. And Gino, do you want to expand a little bit on where can we broaden this out now in Irish context? We're battering Ireland here a lot.
Yeah.
Have we any hope?
No, I mean, I'm hoping in the next 4 weeks to introduce a bill of legalisation around cannabis for personal use. So I've got it. So long story short, I got the legal opinion back that's permissible under European law and so forth. So I'm hoping, as I said, there's 5 weeks left of the Dáil sitting week, so I'm hoping to introduce a bill. It would be called Regulation of Cannabis for Personal Use. So we'll essentially focus on cannabis for personal use and cultivation. It's a bit like what Malta what's happening in Malta. So I think that will start a very kind of robust debate about why prohibition doesn't work. Things have changed in Ireland. I mean, you look at the big social upheavals in the last 10 years. Are people ready for the end of prohibition in Ireland? I think they are. I really, really think they are. I think when you put the arguments in relation to why we need a regulated system rather than what we have at the moment, why the black market essentially runs and enriches themselves, why you could have a regulated system. When you put all them arguments on the table rationally, I think there's a majority in this country that would support that. So public opinion again is ahead of politicians, but it will be a very, very interesting debate when it happens. Even when you look at the composition of the Dáil as well, you know, I think, do we have a majority of people in the Dáil on a personal level that would support regulation? Again, I think it's very, very close, very, very close. So look, it'll be a very interesting debate when it happens, and we've seen what happens in Luxembourg and Malta. Because if Germany basically legalises cannabis in the next 3 years, it's the beginning of the end of prohibition in Europe. It's the end. Yeah. So we need to be ahead and hoping that the blueprint for, you know, end of prohibition is this bill that I'll introduce in the next 4 weeks.
Can I just ask you on the Citizens Assembly, this thing that we hear about again and again, is it's going to happen?
Yeah, it'll happen early next year.
Right.
Sure.
It's probably going to happen early next year. I would be quite sceptical in relation to, not the Citizens Assembly itself. I think the recommendations will probably propose decriminalisation. I think that's what it will recommend, but I don't think the government, the situation at the moment, have the bottle or the stomach to put that recommendations into kind of force. Because if you think about it, they essentially got this recommendation 2.5 years ago in relation to, I can't think of the name of the report that was kind of came out about decrim, and they never done anything about it. So this is going to be a people's movement, because anything that's happened in society, particularly the last 10 years, hasn't really come from the Dáil at all. Essentially, it's come from people pushing, you know, politicians to changing very outdated laws. It's always been like that and always will be like that.
Can I say one thing about the Citizens Assembly?
Yeah.
The issue with that is early 2023, they should hope to bring out the report end of 23, start of 2024, which means that that's going to lay on a desk because it's going to be too close to the general election for the politicians to do anything. So that report is going to be left up to the next government that come in. So it's, hopefully it won't be P5, but that's my own personal opinion. I think everyone here would admit that they're not happy with the current running of the country, but like we have to annoy every single politician, we have to annoy every single group, every single party, because it is going to be everybody's issue and make it an election issue.
Yeah. We're kind of sticking to a tight schedule today, so I'm going to go something less from all of you. What do you think? You're bringing the flower in. Can you get it out?
I think so. Like we're relatively new. As I said, we started in November. We've engaged with the consultants, since then. The appetite is changing. There is a bit more, and like we speak to a lot of patients every week and nearly every day actually, where we're contacted by different patients, and there's more and more coming back to us now, just saying that their consultants are interested in learning more. So I think it's definitely evolving. We work close with some of the authorities as well for bringing the products in, and they're like not in their defence, but they're also learning as we go along. We're both learning this whole new, this whole new industry. So I think, I think I can see change happening. It would be nice to see GPs prescribing product more than consultants. I think that would be a big push.
Well, we keep on talking about new. We have a man here, Martin O'Brien, who's been at this in California for how long? California it was 86 that they got it through on compassionate grounds, and it took until 2016 or 18. Correct me, Martin, but it took that long to get legalization. So it is a long trek, but we have to keep at it. But then Europe, the EU has got to be where it's going to seem to fall down. Q&A. I've got to do a bit of Q&A, guys. So if somebody wants to And the mic there's, you got a bit of running around. We can't keep
Two
it
ladies.
condensed.
In answer, possibly for the doctor there, to his question about there's no harm done, why don't they give access to people? Is it a possibility that the reason they don't give access is that people that smoke marijuana, they tend to think things a bit more, whereas people drinking alcohol, their frontal lobe in their brain is not able to function properly, and the power of reason. And so my question back to you is, does it suit certain political parties to have dumb voters and people that don't vote? Because they've got the status quo and they're happy.
I don't know who to throw that over to. You want to take that, Gareth?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's just a deep-seated prejudice against cannabis and cannabis users, and has been for as long as I can remember. There's also an awful lot of ignorance. The people in this country with some of the hardest views on cannabis are the most ignorant, which is really frustrating. You know, it's hard to, I don't know, was it Mark Twain said, never argue with an idiot because the public won't be able to tell the difference. I kind of feel that way sometimes. There's no comparison between the harms of cannabis and the harms of alcohol. They're just not even in the same planet. And we know what the relationship is with alcohol in this country. I treat it every day of the week. We treat far more alcohol than we treat anything else. It's an absolutely destructive drug at its worst. It's a great drug if you know how to manage alcohol. I'm not, someone who, because I treat addiction, has this idea that alcohol is evil. It's not evil, but it can be very evil at its worst. I don't treat a huge amount of cannabis problems, and I probably largely treat more young people in relation to cannabis. I'm not treating them at all. They're sent because they're in trouble with the law. It's soul destroying. They don't even have a problem. It's really awful to think that they don't even have a problem with cannabis anyway, and now their life has been changed. We had a chat, I think, before, Stephen was telling me about his own experience back in the day. I mean, you shake your head when you hear it. I mean, what it means to have a cannabis conviction. For what? For what purpose? It doesn't make any sense to me. So, I don't know. I know there's a lot of people say that, by downing cannabis, you kind of support the alcohol industry and all that. I don't know about that. I just think that there's such a prejudice against cannabis, the drug cannabis, and the people who use cannabis, that there's a lot of people in this country can't move away from it.
3 people die every day in Ireland apparently from alcohol-related illnesses and alcohol issues. So, I mean, nobody's died from cannabis. Another question?
My question is, do you have any input or any idea about the review, or are you being brought in kind of to speak from an expertise point of view?
Definitely not being brought in to speak at all. But as regards review, we ask a lot of questions. So every time we engage with the authorities, we do ask these questions. The review is due early next year, but I think it's going to happen later this year. So it's planned for 2023, but I believe it will happen probably October, November. But as regards the outcome, it's anyone's guess, Sorry.
Another question there? Everybody always back.
Hello, my question is to you, Gino. This is not a criticism, fair play to you for putting your head in the chopping block when it comes to the cannabis reform, but the government seem to be getting an easy raid when it comes to Leinster House in regards the questions that could be levelled at them, and I'm talking about the CBD industry. Like, we're talking here about reform of the cannabis. We can't even allow the CBD industry to run smoothly in this country without interference from the Gardaí, the Food Safety Authority. These questions should be levelled at the government across the floor in Leinster House and asked awkward questions. Why are you sitting by allowing the Gardaí and the Food Safety Authority to destroy this new industry? This industry should be nurtured, not hammered, and it's being hammered week in, week out. And to be honest with you, Gino, there's a smell of lobbying going on. The government has to be getting lobbied. And if you're lobbying in closed rooms, that's corruption. Somebody is lobbying them, because they have to be doing this at some say, so it's not the government taking it upon themselves to destroy this industry.
React to that?
I don't disagree with you. There's been a kind of essentially a war against CBD sellers in Ireland for the last 18 months and beyond. And I have raised it a number of times in relation to what's going on. And there's a directive essentially come from the Department of Health, Department of Agriculture, to basically clamp down on the whole industry to get it kind of, I suppose, to shut it down essentially. So, and there's obviously there's a lacuna in the law at the moment in relation to interpretation of THC and the Misuse of Drug Act. That needs to be changed. Now, I sent a letter to the Department of Agriculture a long time ago, and they said, yeah, we're in the process of actually changing it to kind of to reflect the European law, which gives it gives a 0.3%, but they still haven't done that. And okay. Yeah, and if you can win that, which hopefully you will, then I think the authorities will go back completely off. But until then, there is a kind of essentially a war against people. Yeah.
Actually getting away with it. There's shops and there's people in this room.
Yeah.
Like not being able within the last 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah. No. No. Look at.
It's a true abuse of power.
No.
Getting away with it.
Yeah. Well, it just comes back to the absolutely antiquated laws in this country around cannabis. Absolute, like it's Jurassic at this stage. It really is Jurassic. Yeah. No. But look, hopefully things will. Yeah, they will change. But hopefully you will win your court case, and if you win your court case, I think things will change dramatically in relation to a number of people, CBD shops in Ireland.
And we'll all be outside the high car, which is
There you go. So please give it up for the panel, guys. The perennial Gareth McGowan and beautiful Natalia O'Regan. Please give it up for them again one time. Giving cosmetic advice outside Gareth McGowan, you know? Sure. Tom Cruise ain't got nothing on that dude.
Oh yeah, perfect. So there. Oh yeah, that's perfect. There, it's it. Once it doesn't fall.
Just the three of us, yeah. Deborah Downey was supposed to be here today, but she can't come today. The next panel here we have is about epilepsy. And this is Kenny Tynan, Martin Condon. They're both directors. Could we keep it down in the back, please? They're both directors of Patients for Safe Access. They're both sufferers, and they get a lot of relief from cannabis. They're both. Can you tell me how does epilepsy affect patients?
Well, it's a very debilitating disease. You could be having a great day, and then all of a sudden you'll just get this aura, it just feels a strange feeling, nearly an alien feeling, and you could drop to the floor. You could be your muscles are tense. You have no control over your body. You start shaking and you can't breathe. So it's a very, very scary experience. It's nearly like you're going to die, you know. And it's not just for the patient. It's for like the people that have to experience it with you. The people that have to look after you when you come out with a seizure as well. Like, you know, it's traumatic for them. If it wasn't for my wife, I don't know how I would have got through them, you know.
And your seizures were brought on because you were a tumour, right? You were a brain tumour, and that's how your seizures were affected. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. In 2015, I was diagnosed with a brain tumour, and I got it removed, and it came back about 2 years later, and that's when it gave me 2 years to live. And thanks to God for medical cannabis now, I'm still here today. Like, you know, My last scan as well came up all clear, so I'm about another 10 or 15 years.
How did your doctors that were treating you, what was their attitude towards cannabis? Any of them supportive of it, or what was their general attitude like?
Any of them was completely supportive. My local GP was actually sending people to me for information on medical cannabis for patients that were wanting to try it.
Martin, Mr. Activist himself. So much, very honoured to be up here with you, Martin. Like, you also suffer from epilepsy, and you had a recent, it's been kind of up and recently, right? You had a pretty heavy bout there recently. Would you mind talking to us about that?
Yeah, certainly. Well, I suppose my story with epilepsy started when I was born. I was born with epilepsy, and my mum and dad actually weren't too sure if they were even going to be able to bring me home to the hospital. But luckily responded to the medication he gave me at the time, and after some time and not having seizures, then the doctors, because these drugs they had me on at the time, being such a small infant, you know, they're not good for the body. Had I continued to be taking those, I wouldn't be here speaking with you, a much different person. So I was very lucky I got off those drugs at the time, and my seizures, my epilepsy, it didn't return. So that would have been about, I think it would have been about 2 months old, I think, when I had my last seizure, before this recent series of seizures started reoccurring. But you were asking Kenny what's it like to have a seizure, and I think you said something along the lines, you know, it's you almost I would describe it as dying, because when I have a seizure, the lights just go out, and I come back from the seizure, and I'm just looking at people panicked around me, like looking at me like, you know, thank God he's still alive and stuff like. So I don't know, like that they describe. I've seen the videos. I have a video. It's a very violent video. It actually turns my stomach to watch me having the seizure. But for me myself, it feels like I've died. You know, the very last time I had the seizures, I woke up in the hospital bed, didn't know what day it was, didn't know who I was, didn't know anything at all. It was a very slow recovery to get back to just knowing who I was, like, and it was a very scary. It's a scary place to be. But unlike any my seizures, you know, while I was born with them, I don't believe my seizure has been brought on by like any tumour or anything. At least I hope it's not any. I believe it's because of the stress put upon me, the added stress, you know, because everybody has stressors in their life to deal with, you know. But you would hope that they'd be just normal things, you know, that you have to deal with. Maybe your pet dying, maybe, you know, getting fired from a job or something like this. But being criminalised for cannabis use, that was a stress that I never needed in my life, and I believe that was the stress that's brought back my seizures. It's a shit situation to be in, you know, because you just don't know where you're going to go. I'm in a situation now where they're trialing me on the medications. The medications aren't really working. They're causing more problems than they're solving, to be fair. The last medication they had me on was Keppra, and it turned me into an absolute monster. I had to try this medication for like 6 weeks, and during the 6 weeks I just was not myself. I was having thoughts of suicide, thoughts of self-harm. I was just easily irritated. I was just having these moods of flash anger. I found out afterwards this is a well-known feature of this drug, but meanwhile they're happy to prescribe that to me as an epilepsy patient. But when I talk about cannabis, it's no way, we can't talk about this. There's a process. That process of trialing medications, that's going to involve me having to try, I don't know, is there 4 to 8 medications I'm going to have to try before I qualify under the Medical Cannabis Access Programme as an epilepsy patient. Meanwhile, you know, I've got cannabis here thanks to a local grower who helps get me through it. And, you know, I'm saying to the people out there who are breaking the law to grow this medicine and produce it, like, because without these people there'll be a lot more suffering going on in Ireland, because there's people who break the law every day to prevent this. And we so easily just dismiss it, but there's people dragged before the courts, and a lot of them don't speak up about it. We've seen a recent case in the UK where a grower was brought to the courts, and all of the patients who were helping him spoke up in favour of this individual. I believe there's many people out there in Ireland who's probably witnessed their dealer go to the courts, maybe even go to prison, and because of the stigma, the fear that exists there, the lack of community. It's great to see a community, you know, building, and it's continuing to build and grow. But over the last few years, I'd imagine there was a lot of people were left without their medicine because of the good work of our Gardaí and the courts and the justice system here. You know. But for me, anyway, epilepsy, it's definitely it's been a curse on my existence. But I would have to say that the prohibition of cannabis has actually been much more greater a problem because of what it's done in the family home. Getting criminalised for cannabis as a young person here in Ireland, it's not a good thing to have to go through. Created a barrier between me and the people who should have been there to help me through, but because they thought they were doing the right thing by supporting the justice system and stigmatising me for my cannabis use, rather than actually looking into why it was I was using cannabis and lending a helping hand, I was left in a much more vulnerable situation. Thankfully I got through it, but unfortunately, going through the trials and tribulations of this prohibition, I've picked up the epilepsy along the way, but hopefully in time, thanks to devices like this, companies like Olio out there, it's a great little vaporizer that's approved for use. But unfortunately, I'm going to be a while yet before I actually legally get prescribed cannabis in Ireland and get to use this device legally.
Very powerful, man. Recently, there, when we were on one of our meetings, you were just before we jumped on. You said you had, I think you described it like an aura, like Kenny said, and you just happened to have a bomb and packed ready to go. And can you tell us about that experience?
I certainly can. As I say, with everybody, they have their own things going on in life outside of cannabis. Cannabis for me is not the most important thing. I was in a situation where I was looking after my newborn son. He's 7 months old now. He was about 4 or 5 months old at the time when this happened. My partner, because of my oldest daughter, again, it's out there in the public sphere now, but she's suffering with mental health problems. She's tried to kill herself a couple of times. So yeah, like that, you're dealing with all these other things, all these other stresses coming on. I had the guards coming along and they're delivering summonses to my parents' place, so I've all this going on. Standing at home, get one of these auras that come over me again, like Kenny says, you're going to get a feeling that you're about to have a seizure. It was just me and my son there, but luckily at my bomb there I was able to get the cannabis into it, get to the door, smoke the bomb, the seizure was able to pass. If I didn't have cannabis there at that moment, that was just me and my son there, I would have been on the floor having a seizure. He's 5 months old, he would have been just sitting there not knowing what's going on. Again, my partner, she was away looking after my daughter obviously, and my other daughter would have been at school, It's a horrible situation to be in, but thankfully the cannabis that morning helped me through. But my real problem with it is really, is I can't work with this in the way in which patients should be entitled to work with it. My cannabis, I pulled out a bit of cannabis that I used to self-medicate, but I have no idea as to the potency of this cannabis. I have no idea to the chemo profile of this cannabis. So therefore, as a patient, I can continue to keep up the maintenance dose. I'm not getting the consistency that's needed to control the symptoms of my condition. For any of the other drugs that they had me on for the epilepsy so far, it's taken me a number of weeks to get up to the maintenance dose of those drugs. But during those weeks, the side effects, the increase, the headaches, they're all there. Meanwhile, when I've been using cannabis, there's been little to no side effects. I've only ever had positive effects. The only negative effects of cannabis has been, again, through the prohibition of it, unfortunately.
Are we done? Yeah. I think that's about wraps it up. That's beautiful. Thanks very much, guys. Appreciate you. The next one is chronic pain. Oh no, we got question and answer. My bad. Anyone want to ask Martin or Kenny a question? Can you pick someone else, please? Give everyone a chance.
Hiya. First off, to the two of you, thank you very much. I can relate very strongly. So it's the same thing. It's like I don't want to be speaking badly again, but the idea of trialing pharmaceutical all the time, in my case for over 8 years, has destroyed my life. And the problem with the cannabis is it works. So for me to get access is the problem, because either you run the danger of being misinterpreted. You don't know what you're going to get. There is no dosage profile. You can't ever know. You're constantly risk-taking. If you're risk-taking, you're also taking CBD to co-balance it, the whole thing. You know, so what I had to do in the end was I had to give up everything. And it's a bit hardcore, but now I'm trying to maybe go back to cannabis again, because it was the most beneficial product I've had, unlike Lyrica. Keppra was a nightmare. That's why I'm really relating. And also to yourself as well. I've been through a whole regime of epileptic drugs in the past. So I'm just saying, yes, thank you both for highlighting how hard it actually is and pointing out the difficulties there. And that's hope for the change. So I'm just supporting both of you. And so thank you.
Anyone else going to come up in the back there?
Hi, how you doing? My name is Gwen. Nice to meet you. I've met you before, Kenny, I think. No, I just wanted to share really about my own story very quickly. I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer 5 years ago, and only for medical cannabis, I don't think I'd be here. I've had very little treatment, but unfortunately my cancer came back. I've had to have surgery, the whole lot. Because of this now, I'm in a lot of pain. And they were prescribing me, I don't know, Lyrica, Epilepsy. They had me hooked up to an infusion, ketamine, all of these things for the pain. It's just, you know, I'm trying these things because I want to stay alive. I want to take my medical cannabis, but again, you're saying medical, I'm getting it from somebody that's just making it. I don't know the dosage, I don't know nothing. And it's scaring me because sometimes I take too much and then I'm paranoid. Then I'm taking, you know, the CBD, I don't know whether that's going to counteract the paranoia. Because, you know, it wakes me up at night, I'm freaked. And it multiplies my stress by about 100. Sometimes, and then sometimes I wake up with the munchies. Sometimes, you know, ask my partner, is he making the burgers or did he talk himself, you know? You know, all this type of stuff. And night I had dreams that I had peas and beans were my friends, you know, and I woke up crying because I ate them, you know. You know, it's just unbelievable that this medical cannabis, because I'm talking about patients for safe access. Define a patient. I said to my oncologist, I said to my doctor, my GP, about medical cannabis, listen, when your time is up, your time is up. That's what I was told. Don't want to know nothing, I'm scientific, I'm being given all of these other drugs, that's no problem, that I could become extremely addicted to. In the meantime, I'm full of depression. You know, they have me on antidepressant. I don't want to be like that. I want to be able to get safe access to medical cannabis so I can live my life and have a good quality of life for how long I'm going to live. You know, and it's just, I'm up and down and I'm taking this cannabis through trial and error and I don't know who to go to, where to go to, or who to speak to about it. And I really feel that GPs and, you know, oncologists and all of these doctors should be forced to learn about this cannabis and should be a part of their...
And I just say, any GP or any consultant that I ever came across that doubted me, I says to them, are all these doctors all around the world who are prescribing medical cannabis for all these different conditions, are they all wrong? Yeah, I couldn't answer that question, you know. And the way that I actually convinced my consultant to sign me up to get a license is that I brought in black market medicine, and he says that I have no choice now. So if you're going to continue to do this, one of the first rules is do no harm. And he says, if you're going to continue to do this, the safest route is for me to apply for this here. So that's what I'm convinced.
Yeah, no, I just thought the gentleman in the hat there might have had a question you wanted to ask.
Yeah, it was related to Dr. William Brooke Shaughnessy and his two touted patients, if you'd like to put it that way. One was a 40-day-old infant with seizures. That's like in 1847.
That's right.
And the other one was Queen Victoria for menstrual pains, supposedly, as the story goes. But my understanding is that the pharmaceutical companies have taken over the space of a natural medicine, which works, and they're giving stuff to people to keep them away from the stuff that works because they can grow it themselves. There's no money in it. That's the comment I was just going to make that fitted in with the story of yours as a young person.
Well, I'm glad I got the mic over to you, because I think you pointed out something very important, is that William Brooke O'Shaughnessy, an Irishman born in Limerick and studied, I believe, over in Wales, travelled to India all those years ago, over 100 years ago, and he discovered what he described at the time as being a cure for infantile spasms, I believe is the exact quote from William Brooke O'Shaughnessy. And it was not till many years later, the 1920s, following on from the ending of Prohibition in America, when we had the prohibitionists then looking for something else they can prohibit. And at the time, the policymakers, they were racist, misogynist, there were all sorts of poorly led people back at those times. And they latched onto cannabis prohibition and it perpetuated out. And because of that then, so rightfully, they were able to remove cannabis from the medicine toolbox of the health professionals over time. Because how they did it, they started spinning the lies about marijuana, and people didn't realise that marijuana was actually the same cannabis that was being dispensed for all the different ailments that it was being dispensed for all those years ago. So then slowly over time, we had the introduction of these new pharmaceuticals, such as aspirin, I believe was I think it was aspirin, was the one that was coming on the market around the same time as cannabis prohibition. So it was an easy transition then for doctors to take away the cannabis, and now there's this kind of big pharma, I suppose the origins of the big pharma back then, as it would. And I think it was born from, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was from the big oil industry. It was kind of where big pharmaceutical industries kind of came out of. And again, we look at cannabis as a plant as a whole and its potential there and its threat to big oil industries. There was a win-win there for those two different industries, big oil and the pharmaceuticals, by removing this plant from not only the medicine cabinet of your doctor, but from maybe the back garden of your neighbours who, at a time of need, would have given it to the neighbour. But yeah, thanks very much for bringing that up and giving me the opportunity to say that.
Alicia, Amy, next up for chronic pain. Give them a big round of applause, please. Well, up on the stage here we have Stephen Garland, Amy Brown, and Alicia Maher. Two of the people on the stage here have to live somewhere else to get the access and support they need. Alicia's mom, Siobhan, is here in the crowd today. I'm sure she's not looking forward. We're going home on Tuesday, or going back to leaving home on Tuesday, Tell me a little bit, Alicia, about what the experience is like as a chronic pain sufferer, please.
Well, it's fine now since I got cannabis. So I suffered from chronic pain for about 10 years altogether. I only went to have my tonsils out, ended up with a colostomy bag on my stomach and a broken bone in my back. And for those 10 years afterwards, I was just treated with painkillers. And every 3 to 4 months, I'd go to hospital and have procedures done on my back. And it continued and continued up until 2018. And by that time, I was taking 30 tablets a day. So I was taking tramadol, Epilepsy, amitriptyline, Lyrica. I had pain patches on all the time. And for about 2 years, I didn't leave the house with the pain. I was just on the couch all the time. I'd get up in the morning, take 10 tablets, fall asleep. Wake up when the pain came back, take another 10 tablets and fall asleep. So I was like living my life in 4-hour cycles for 2 years when I was at the highest dose of the medication. And it was just a friend of my husband's in America suggested that I try cannabis. I was 35 at the time, never tried cannabis in my life, never smoked it or anything. And he sent over a vape from New York. So the first time I took it, I was still taking the 30 tablets a day.
and I tried the vape, and the pain went down, and I couldn't believe it. I was crying, I was laughing at the same time. I just couldn't understand how something it looked so insignificant could just get rid of the pain. So the next day, woke up with pain again, took my tablets, and I said, I'll keep trying the vape. And again, it worked for the pain, reduced the pain. I was absolutely delighted. So I actually decided the same day I was going to try to come off the tablets. I was thinking, what's the point in taking all these tablets when this is instantly giving me relief? So I came off half of the tablets. So when I was down to 15, I brought the cannabis down to my GP. And I walked in, and usually the only time he'd see me is when I'm crying so much in pain I need an emergency appointment for the hospital. And I walked in and he looked at me and he was like, holy shit, like, how do you look so well? And I said, hold on a second there, it's cannabis. Yeah. And he was like, oh my God. And he said the same thing as Kenny's doctor. He said, I don't know anybody else that uses cannabis for pain the way you do, but I have to first do no harm. So he said he actually agreed on that day then to apply for the ministerial license for me. So he applied 3 times and they rejected the application 3 times because he didn't have a consultant. So I had to wait a year and a half to see a pain consultant, which is nothing. Like I thought it would be 3 years. So in the meantime then, in November 2019, we moved to Spain, because I knew that I'd be able to access it through the clubs there. I came back then in January 2020 and met with the pain consultant. By that time, I'd completely come off all the tablets and I was just using the cannabis on its own. And he said the same thing. He said, it's incredible. He said, I can't believe that you actually managed to come off all those tablets in the first place and replace them with cannabis. And he said that he'd apply as well. So that was fine, put in the application. And it was successful, but I wasn't prepared for the cost. I thought it would be covered on a medical card, the same as the 900 tablets a month were, you know. So 900 tablets, yeah. So obviously then the cost of the cannabis was over 1,000. It was about 1,500 a month at the time. It's less now, but I obviously couldn't afford it. So we moved. I went back to Spain with my license and my prescription and no cannabis. So, and that's been it since. I've been going to the clubs in Spain. Actually, during the lockdown, they all closed down, but somebody here put me in touch with a wellness clinic, and they just asked for my prescription from home, and I send it up to them every month, and they post down the cannabis. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Yeah. That's fantastic. What about you, Amy? You seem to be nodding your head a lot there in agreement to. Is it similar experiences? Can you tell us about
Extremely
this?
similar. Only Alicia's obviously stemmed from an operation. I was telling my story for a long time that my symptoms started when I was 11, when I got my first period. But recently, getting notes from the Freedom of Information Act from the hospital, I discovered that I was first hospitalised when I was 8. So I had 3 hospitalisations between 8 and 11 before I got my first period. Within 3 months of getting it, it was out of control. It was extremely heavy. The pain was horrendous. I was 11 years old. I didn't know what was going on. And I have 3 older sisters who never suffered like that. So my mum brought me to the GP and he put me on the pill, on 1 pill. And for the next 10 years, I was a hormonal guinea pig. I tried every pill, patch, injection, 4 Mirena coils, every possible hormonal treatment on the market, I tried. And nothing ever worked, and I was in pain all the time. And I didn't hear the word endometriosis until I was 21. So someone mentioned earlier, the lady up the back, she said, like, define a patient. What is a patient? I wasn't actually diagnosed or recognised as a patient until I was 21. So what was I for the rest of those years? Do you know, so got my diagnosis and realised that I didn't actually do any research for about 3 years. And when I did, it was a rabbit hole I could never come back from. I realised it was the most aggressive, benign disease there is. The surgery for endometriosis is often more complicated than cancer. It grows everywhere. It's not just on the womb, it's not just reproductive organs, it grows everywhere in the body. And there's 200 million patients worldwide and only 200 specialists. So what hope have we got, like? So I had 3 surgeries in Ireland. The third one destroyed everything, ruined my life. I had to go on disability. I had to give up my career. That had me travelling the world. I had to move 2 hours away from my family, my GP and everything because I couldn't afford to live in Dublin anymore. And I was bedbound, like Alicia said, for 18 months after that operation. I couldn't get a pre or a post-op appointment for 8 months from that surgery. And when I finally did get it, I begged them for a referral to a doctor in Romania who I knew could help me. They had a multidisciplinary team. I was told on that day that I wasn't entitled to that referral because they're going to do the same thing over there that we've already done, and all I can do at this point is wait for the pain management clinic. This was in March 2019, and I've been on that pain clinic list since 2016. I didn't actually get an appointment until 21, so it was 5 years. In the meantime, if they had given me the referral, the cost of everything would have been covered under the treatment abroad scheme. But because they refused me the referral, I had the stress of trying to gather that money myself. So an angel offered me a lend of the money. I borrowed the €10,000, went to Romania, and I was in the doll within 6 weeks of coming back from Romania, running amok at the fact that I had to do that. And that and I have to thank Gino for that. Hands up, Gino, you were the one that got me in the door, got me able to speak But what annoyed me was, at the time, like the Endo Association of Ireland had been established since 1987. I was born in 92, and it's after taken for me to get to this age to talk about it. All these women are suffering in silence. There was a woman a few months ago who overdosed and she was labelled an addict. She was undiagnosed with endometriosis, trying to manage this aggressive, debilitating pain all by herself. And the outrage in the doll was over the over-the-counter medication. Not at the fact that this woman was suffering desperately on her own for years with no help or support, not diagnosed with endo. So what my main problem is, when I finally did see the pain consultant in 2021, he flat out refused cannabis. He said there was a paper done in Europe that he goes off of and that says that he doesn't support it in chronic pain. And if I feel like I want it, I should emigrate. And my response was, I've already had to emigrate to deal with the acute condition. Now you expect me to emigrate long term, and what about the other fucking 1 in 10 that's suffering? What about them? Where's the emigrated yet? It boils my blood, and what I keep saying is, if that epilepsy that lady mentioned as well, that lady was stage 4 cancer, put on epilepsy. I was 26, and I was on 450 milligrams of epilepsy a day was my prescription. 450. I never took it, because if I did, I wouldn't be here today. Accidental overdose is a huge thing among the endometriosis community and the chronic pain in general, I'm sure. But as long as policymakers and doctors and these people who are in a position to lift a finger to help us, as long as they keep ignoring us, they're contributing to these unnecessary overdoses, these unnecessary addiction, this unnecessary irreversible side effects from medications. Now, I'm not dissing anybody that takes medications, because I do believe there is a place for pharmaceuticals, but there's also a place for cannabis. And if we're talking about patient-led care, I'm not having any say in my care. I'm not having any input in what I want to be taken, because they won't listen to me. How is that patient-centered care? It's not. It's not. I know we're pushed for time, so what I'll just finish on is, like I keep saying, if I was to overdose tomorrow, there'd be outpours for me to rest in peace. But where the fuck is the outcry for me to live in peace? I've had family members willing to disown me for my cannabis use at one point. And it's only since I've come back from Romania, it's only been 2.5 years that I've been speaking publicly and talking about endometriosis, and the amount of girls that have had a second chance now because they've gone abroad for surgery. If I wasn't sharing this trauma, they'd all be still suffering in silence. And I've empowered people in the cannabis community to not have any shame, because that shame is being imposed on other people who don't understand, who don't have to live 2 minutes in my pain. At what point is it their responsibility to educate themselves? I'm exhausted explaining myself and justifying myself. I just want someone to help me.
That's very clear. It's clear to me too. There's a lot of people here that support you and believe in you, and it's great to see you have the opportunity to say what's on your mind in this forum where we can all listen to each other and help each other out. It's fucking disgusting.
I'm pretty sure I manifested this, to be honest, so thank you very much for having me.
Thanks very much, because I could see my family tonight, so thanks for manifesting me over. You know, 'cause I'm an immigrant myself, right? You know, it's like, but it's not from a cannabis perspective. So it's obviously cannabis is very, very helpful for you. But like, I hope that when they bring cannabis in here, they do a better job than what they're doing with regular pain management. For someone to say like to the lady up the back, like, oh, your time is done when your time is done, or like, go ahead and immigrate. I mean, that's like, where in the first law of a doctor, like, do no harm.
Yeah.
Well, that's not accurate. These people need to be held accountable as well.
I have left some of these appointments really feeling suicidal. Feeling like, what is the point? Like, what, if they're not going to listen and they're going to constantly shut me down, what is the point? You know, and like, cannabis has saved me from that so many times. And even like broadening the MCAT program to include endometriosis or chronic pain. Bottom line, that's not really going to be any good to me. I need a dispensary that I can choose an edible, or I can choose a specific strain that's going to help with a specific ailment, because the truth is I don't know what symptom I'm going to have tomorrow, or how many symptoms, or how bad they're going to be. The Endo Network in Canada run workshops specific for cannabis. What strains to take in which way for which symptoms to be most effective. A full-blown workshop. Whereas here, I'm guessing, and like that, if I got through the MCAT program, I'd be stuck with the same strain all the time. The only way that I can get it like really effective is by switching up the strains, because I build up the tolerance. And like that, it's back pain, it's pelvic pain, it's constant nausea. And what I don't understand is I'm prescribed the same medication as chemo patients for the extreme nausea. So why can't I be prescribed cannabis for the intractable nausea as well? They're already being included in the MCAT program, so why can't I? But even when I do, and when I'm in Alicia's position, I won't be able to afford it. And it won't be specific to what I need. So I need social clubs, I need community access, and I need my farmer up the road to be getting recognition for the work he's doing for the patient in his community.
Absolutely. One of the things that Safe Access brings is like all of the cannabis that we serve in California comes with a certificate of analysis, and then it comes with everything. And it's like, it's not so much the strain from us that's as important anymore, it's the terpene profile. Because you can have the same strain that's grown differently by a different person in different conditions or whatever, and it's not going to have the same dominant like profiles. Like if you have limonene in it, that's something you can smoke in the morning, and you can keep getting the same effect off it all the time. Some of them are like the grape flavors or the fruit flavors and stuff, you know. Yeah. They're only really good like for first thing in the morning, or for one smoke. You smoke it again and it's no good. Yeah. So it needs to go beyond the MCAT program. It needs to have a wide, it's like,
much wider.
I'm not going to repeat it, you said it perfectly.
Even apart from that, like if you know exactly what's what and you have the analysis, my endocannabinoid system is going to be different from day to day because of my condition. And if I'm more inflamed today than I am tomorrow, maybe I'm going to need a higher dose of strain today that I might not need tomorrow. Do you know, so like I am the expert on my own body, and like Gary McGovern said, it shouldn't be up to a doctor, it should be up to me to go into a dispensary and say, this is how I feel today, this is what I need.
Stephen, tell us a little, like, from my perspective again, not really knowing, like, learning a lot more about the program here and what's going on, and like what Stephen described to me was just ridiculous, that the Irish government admit that he's ill, admit that he's sick, but they're like, we're going to wait till you're really, really, really sick, till you're at the other end of the spectrum, till you're spasticity and you're uncontrollable, and then we'll consider giving you cannabis. and that's draconian. And then, like, Stephen, you have to go to, you have an advanced level of MS, right? And you went to Russia. Can you tell us about that? And because you should technically be in a wheelchair at this stage, from what they said, right?
Oh, there you go. I had PPMS, is what it was diagnosed with, which is a real no treatment, no cure, no way back. And didn't like that prognosis, would you believe it? And so I got busy, man. And here's the message that I have, is that I took control of my own health journey, you know. And I found a guy in Ireland, a young fella from Castleblaney, who was in the similar kind of MS position, young guy, 27, and he wasn't happy with his diagnosis. And he happened upon a thing called HSCT, non-FDA approved, and so no neurologist in Ireland would tell you anything about this. MS Ireland didn't tell you anything about this. No Irish institution said anything about this treatment. And but myself and this guy, a young fella from Castle, Gary Gibson was his name. He's the first guy in Ireland to go do HSCT in Russia. And I said, very Irish, I said, look, while you're there, I was getting refused from different places, Heidelberg and different places. And I said, well, while you're there, we asked Dr. F. That's how he's known, a bit bombed name, but is Dr. Fedorenko. And I asked him, well, you didn't ask him if he'll hop me up the queue there. It was a 3-year waiting list, and see if he'd put me in for the HSCT. It stands for hemiopoietic, I hate these fucking words, stem cell therapy. And so then I went to Russia, and I did a 30-day hospitalization of a lot of chemotherapy. And this is a good point, a lot of chemotherapy. So those drugs for the chemotherapy were actually FDA approved. So I've got no problem. There can be a balance between pharmacological drugs approved and all that kind of thing, and the fact that there can be a balance with other holistic things on the side as well. So anyway, I did the 30-day. This is all new hair, and somebody often a very weak whistle there.
Cotton mouth, I'm sorry.
So I'm taking it, and so then I stopped. I halted my progression. They told me that I was 6 months away from a wheelchair. I had 1 stick at the time. I was heading for 2 sticks and heading for, you only go one way with primary progressive. You're going for your inner things, your bladder and all that thing starts to malfunction, and it's a pretty nasty end for anybody. But the thing was, and that's my message, was you take control of your own health. So I'm also here I have MS, but I don't have spasticity. And so the only thing that fits on this MCAP program for MS, while it's one of the 3 conditions, it's right up there in the front actually, that's one of the top conditions, it's only for spasticity. So you have to go through this rigmarole of, you're lying, I want cannabis, but I don't have spasticity, so you want me to do these bullshit pharmacological drugs for my spasticity to maybe get on a program. So luckily enough, I live in Barcelona, and I've always lived there, and I've been there for the beginning of the entire history of the cannabis club scene in Barcelona and Spain. I know it really well. I know all the activists in Spain, and I also knew Howard Marks. I'm a promoter, and I brought Howard Marks to Spain twice, and that brought me into contact with Shanti Baba and legends of the cannabis industry. And so I've had the ability to know what's happening, and the ability in Spain. We're allowed to grow 4 plants, and the right to grow is a very simple solution to a lot of this, And we need the right to grow, simple as that. So we have the right to grow. In Spain, just like and Ireland has the culture of cooperatives. The credit union is a cooperative. And cooperatives, farming cooperatives and all these things have a history in Ireland. And so you put the 2 together, right to grow and right to kind of get together and educate each other and create our strains and educate ourselves about what we can do. So I have, by trial and error, I know kind of what I'm after, and I'm smoking since I'm 12. It only became medical cannabis when I got MS. So, but that's what my journey is. But being able to have the right to grow, I can grow my 4 plants and everybody around me can grow them if they want to, and I'd like the right to go to a club and buy what the fuck I want. And so I've been able to do that, put it in a vape, and I've solved my chronic pain issues that doesn't get anything under my MCAP program. So we're falling through the cracks. There's another guy here, I think John Finnegan, I think he might be in the room, but he's another MS patient that doesn't have spasticity. He has... Oh, John Doherty.
Yeah, he couldn't make it to... He's cocooning because he has to get 2 hip replacements from the steroids they've had him on for a very long time. He couldn't come today in person. So shout out to John, bless him.
Yeah. Same thing, the same thing with John. John doesn't fit the MS profile of having spasticity. He has chronic pain and his other issues. And there's a bunch of MS patients like this who don't have spasticity. They have different nerve pain. It's a neurological disease. You know, we've got nerve pain, man, that we can fix with cannabis. End of story. Let us grow.
Alicia, is there anything you'd like to say? Like, what would you like to see here in Ireland?
I'd like the same thing as Stephen, the right to grow and the social clubs like we have in Spain. Because I think the MCAP is a failure and I don't see how it's going to get very much better, to be honest. Expanding the conditions, they want to, well, we've been trying for the last few years to expand it to chronic pain. They're still saying that there's no evidence. You know, it's just ridiculous. I honestly, if this review does happen next year and they don't expand it to chronic pain, nothing is going to go any further with it, to be honest.
900 to 0.
900 to 0.
Her prescription was 900 tablets a month. I used to try and tell people about it, and I could just go, going 900? Could it be? Is that not 9,000? I'm getting confused because it's too ridiculous to be taking that amount of prescribed drugs. And it's actually 900 a month to 0.
Yeah. I think mine is 750 down to like 750 a month down to now it's 2 hormones a day. So
Excellent. Any of you have a question for any of the people here?
Not so much a question. Hello everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for showing up and for everyone behind Patients for Safe Access for making the effort. I really appreciate everyone showing up, and I really appreciate the openness, the vulnerability and the passion. And I'll share a bit of my story for context. I had a benign cancerous tumour removed when I was 13. Very traumatising experience for a young man. I was left with kind of a botched operation, a lot of bodily stress and inflammation within the body. Left me to a lot of dark nights and a lot of dark thoughts. And like many of other people here, without the power of the plant, I wouldn't be here. And we all have that to thank, you know. And I think many of us are starting to realise now that the root cause of illness is trauma, right? And that addiction isn't necessarily a chemical dependence, but more so environmentally related to the people we're surrounded by, and then the stigma obviously adds to that stress upon the individual and can lead them to isolation, and that's not a positive.
Yeah, definitely not. You need the social clubs for people to interact and realise that they're not going through it together.
Yeah.
Thanks very much. Anyone else got a question? More questions? Grant.
I would just like to say, sorry, I don't mean to mind quickly. I would just like to say that I'm a patient with fibromyalgia. I've been suffering with chronic pain. I've had 6 surgeries. I had a massive car crash. I wrapped myself into alcoholism through the chronic pain. So I had to go into Rutland Centre. Yet I'm pissed off with the doctors. Professor McCarthy and the matter said to me, this will never be cannabis will never be legalised in my time here. And then I'm under the pain specialist as well, another lot of them upstairs. They have me on so many tablets, Lyrica, Cymbalta, two numerous to mention. I don't have many antidepressants. I'm all blown up. I should be 9.5 stone. But you know, this is the effects of what pain medication is doing. And they're just prepared to keep, you know, my son, with the help of the man here, and my son, he's likely to be, you know, prisoned. They put him in prison, and like, he is in the media, so they look to get dirt on him. And just seeing me in so much pain, and knowing I'm in pain, he took me away to Spain there a few weeks ago. And if he hadn't told me, I would have died of a heart attack. He knows what I'm like when I go into spasm with pain. And I've had loads of 2 new knees, shoulder, and back surgery, numerous. And yet I said to the man the other day in the matter, I said, listen, when are you going to legalise this? You're after taking me down off, I'm trying to come off Lyrica. You took me down by 200, and yet pain is worse even. Now I have to go back and up and I said, I come off that altogether if you need to. Oh, what about that, the stuff you can buy over the counter? I said, that's not what I'm asking you. I said, he said, I said, that's not what I'm asking. I said, I'm on horrendous amounts of tablets. And I said, and I am taking the stuff, the medical marijuana, as they call it as well. I said, my son gets it from me, and with the help of the good man here, too. Tom has been very good to me. But like, I mean, it's ridiculous, you know. I said to him, I said, well, you mightn't see it in my time, but by Jesus, it'll be in the next one. You know, it's horrible that my son has to, you know, put himself in danger, you know, and he's smuggled a bit in his, if he, like, I mean, he could be imprisoned, his name blackened, everything, for his mother, you know. Seeing me going through so much pain, all these surgeries, you know, so it's just, you know, I don't know about doctors, asbestos, but there's just something, there's a lot of backhanders being given to keep this out, keep pharmaceutical companies, you know, as big as they are. So that's...
Thanks very much for sharing. Thank you so much. So we'll take a break now for 15, 20 minutes or something?
15, yeah.
15? I was trying to get the extra 5 and smoke some, well, cannabis, yes.
Alright everyone, we zoomed out there, what's happening? See everybody out in the audience, Zombie Nation, what's happening? Battery's probably going to go dead in a little while, guys. Got 12% left. I'll see if I can find a charger there during the break, and we'll try to get a little bit more streamed for you. But hopefully you enjoyed that first installment there. Flick this camera around again one more time. This is what's... Yeah, just showing people what's coming up after the break. Nice one, Amy. Appreciate that. So this is coming up there afterwards. Next, multiple sclerosis, Tom, Pamela, Stephen Garland. Then it's going to be myself, harm reduction, more on activism again, including myself, future of cannabis, including myself, and then the national policy, the vote, and the closing remarks. So again, all going to feature myself. So I'd say I'll do what I can there, get the battery sorted, but I don't know how well it's going to look. I have my lead, but I don't have a plug. Nice one everybody for your chats coming in. See them all coming up. Barry Fields, what's happening? Meow Flower out there as well. Farajor, what's going on? Twin Stars, Billy Bonds, B Mooney, Jagoji. Guys, nice one for all the comments coming in. Mr. Wes Green Tea out there as well, guys. Hopefully you're enjoying the stream. I know you weren't able to make it today over work and all that, so hopefully that the stream helps. Yeah, Mr. Finnegan, great speakers there right today. John watching in the audience. Nice, guys. So guys, I'm going to end the stream and I'll try to sort out a battery, and we'll see you back in 20 minutes, 15-20 minutes. Catch you soon. Bye.